Las Vegas, famous for its bright lights, endless casinos, and the occasional legendary heist. In 1993, amidst the glittering slot machines and high rollers, one of the most daring robberies in history took place. A young woman, just 21 years old, teamed up with a career criminal to snatch over $3 million in cash from an armored truck. Then poof, they vanished, leaving the FBI scratching their heads and flipping through roadmaps for more than a decade. This was no simple smash and grab. The fugitives would remain a mystery for nearly 12 years, confounding not just local authorities but also federal agencies that pride themselves on leaving no stone unturned. How did they do it? And where did they run off to with that massive payday? Buckle up as we dive into the twist-filled story of Heather Tallchief and Roberto Solis, the couple that took on Vegas and stayed one step ahead of the law for 12 long years. Heather Tallchief wasn't exactly born into a storybook life. But let's jump straight to the good part. By 1993, she had landed a job as a driver for Loomis, a secure cash handling company responsible for stocking Las Vegas ATMs, driving armored vans loaded with millions in casino cash each day. Let's just say it was the kind of position you'd want to list on your resume if you're planning a multi-million-dollar heist. At the time, Las Vegas's casinos were booming, and Loomis handled enormous sums daily. This setting offered an unparalleled opportunity for anyone bold and desperate enough to strike. Heather, described by some acquaintances as quiet and somewhat troubled, found herself in a position of high responsibility despite her lack of experience. The master planner on the scene was Roberto Solis, a man who'd already served decades in prison for a botched armored truck robbery that left a guard, Louis Dake, dead. After his parole, Solis reinvented himself as a poet and mystic, dabbling in esoteric beliefs and sex magic. If that's not a red flag, I'm not sure what is. Yet Heather, at a vulnerable moment in her life, fell in love with him and into his carefully laid trap. While other couples compare calendars for dinner reservations, Heather and Roberto spent months mapping out which day would yield the biggest haul. Heather dutifully took mental notes and later, actual notes of her routes, timing, and how much cash they carried. Solis wasn't just winging this, he was a methodical criminal mastermind, collecting every detail of Loomis operations. He pored over every piece of data. Heather provided the flow of traffic, the security measures at each casino, and the vulnerabilities in the routine service schedule. Solis, writing under the pen name Pancho Aguila during his prison stint, had long been praised for intellectual depth. Now he put that intellect toward planning what he considered the perfect score. Finally, they chose their golden day, a Friday in October 1993. The plan was simple but brilliant. Heather would drive the armored truck as usual. Her two co-workers would hop off at the Circus Casino to restock its many ATMs. Normally, Heather would circle around and pick them up at a different entrance, easy peasy. Instead, she drove off into the sunrise with $3.1 million still on board. Once the colleagues realized Heather wasn't just stuck in traffic, panic set in. The FBI hit the scene fast. For them, a casino heist is federal business. They scoured the city, checked airports, bus stations, and anywhere a suspicious-looking armored truck might hide. But Heather had already met up with Roberto in a rented garage. Within an hour, they were gone, changed clothes, ditched the truck, mailed the cash out in packages, and were in a private jet, outsmarting the entire city. The FBI, led by Special Agent Joe Duzik, initially suspected an abduction or a staged kidnapping. Once surveillance footage showed Heather calmly driving away, the theory shifted. She was a willing participant. This revelation changed the tone of the investigation from a rescue operation to a nationwide manhunt. From there, it was like a cross-country scavenger hunt. By 1995, Dutch police were quietly alerted by Interpol to watch for large cash transactions or suspicious paperwork. However, Heather and Solis managed to keep a low profile. They sometimes traveled elsewhere in Europe under assumed names, and it wasn't until Heather's pregnancy that the couple decided to settle more permanently in Amsterdam. Locals later recalled a reserved, English-speaking woman with a baby, unaware she was on the FBI's most wanted list. The FBI trailed faint leads through Denver, New Orleans, Miami, but the fugitives always stayed a step ahead. Heather, disguised as an old lady in a wheelchair. Roberto, keeping his cool while the entire nation hunted them. They vanished overseas, eventually landing in Amsterdam, where they settled into new identities. Heather gave birth to their son there, quietly building a life far from the neon haze of the Strip. But life on the run isn't exactly all tropical beaches and champagne brunches. Solis, it turns out, was just as heartless as he was cunning. Over time, he drifted from Heather, leaving her to care for their child alone. She realized she'd been a pawn in his deadly game. Stuck with fake identities and constantly looking over her shoulder, Heather grew weary of the charade. Dutch authorities, unbeknownst to who they really were, simply saw them as foreign residents blending into Amsterdam's multicultural environment. Heather's focus shifted from stolen millions to basic survival, renting apartments under false names, sending their child to local schools, and juggling her secret past with the demands of motherhood. Finally, after 12 long years as a fugitive, Heather Tallchief had enough. In 2005, she returned to the United States and voluntarily surrendered. She told the authorities she wanted a normal life for her son, an American upbringing without false passports and living in constant fear. The FBI, who'd chased their ghosts for over a decade, now had Heather in custody. Heather pleaded guilty and, thanks to her voluntary return and cooperation, received a relatively light sentence of 5 years. After serving her time, she spent another 5 years under probation. By 2010, she was a free woman, one who had paid her dues. During her sentencing, Heather expressed regret over her role in the heist and testified extensively about Roberto Solis's manipulative behavior. A psychiatrist's evaluation revealed she'd been under his psychological control for years, further influencing the judge's more lenient approach. Meanwhile, the FBI hoped her testimony might finally yield some clue to Solis's whereabouts, but no solid leads emerged. Her surrender was seen as a rare act of contrition. She offered insights into how Solis manipulated her. Authorities believed her cooperation, admitting her role, detailing Solis's methods, and helping close a notorious cold case warranted some degree of leniency. As for Roberto Solis, he's still out there. The FBI has never caught him, and his whereabouts remain a mystery to this day. Rumor has it, he might be living off the stolen millions, sipping some pricey cocktail somewhere off the grid. Or perhaps he's long gone, his fate unknown. In the end, this unlikely power couple showed that love, or at least something that looked like it, can inspire extraordinary crimes and extraordinary escapes. But as the dust settled, it's clear that wealth stolen under neon lights doesn't buy happiness, and running from the past only lasts so long before it catches up with you. What happens in Vegas might stay in Vegas, unless you try to run off with millions in cold, hard cash. In that case, it follows you around the globe for at least 12 years. What do you think? Comment below. I want to know your opinion about this matter. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more of these kinds of videos. Thanks for watching.